Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Serge.
My name is James.
And you would normally get a people's poll on a Tuesday or a Monday, depending on the day of the week that the fixtures end. But this week we are coming at you with a Q&A. We didn't get to the questions on the main podcast yesterday, where we gave you a rundown of all 10 game week 8 fixtures. So we will we'll get to the questions today, James.
Yeah, thought it made a little change. We'll get your cues covered. All your international break dilemmas coming up right now.
Lovely jubbly. First question coming in from @Planet FPL Pod. Serge, have you hit record on the video?
Dickhead.
Oh dear. For people that will know, we're just not used to this lockdown remote recording situation. It's been a while since we've had to revert.
Oddly enough, Serge, when we went into lockdown before, we never had a problem with you not pressing record. We had a problem yesterday, and
again today.
I started recording this podcast half hour ago. Where you been?
Right, let's get to these Twitter questions. We've got plenty to get through. For the patrons, we did a Q&A yesterday as well. Quite a few of the patrons were asking questions about Tottenham assets, James, no doubt because of your allegiance and knowledge about your club. I've got a sneaky that there's going to be plenty of Spurs questions as well. Let's start with Amber Redmond. Been a while since we've answered that Amber question. So which makes less sense? The Bamford offside call or managers greeting each other with a COVID-prompted fist bump and then full hug?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, the Bamford offside call makes less sense than anything.
Yes, that's true. Although I do love that the managers do that. It's the fist bump and then what do we do now?
We just hug anyway.
Let's have a fucking cuddle anyway.
Yeah.
Talking of managers doing things, I don't mind Arteta. I'm going to get some bias in, but I have noticed something extremely annoying about him recently.
Yeah.
It's that whenever they win, he turns around and claps. He does like a really fast claps to himself.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's clapping to his teammates or he's clapping the people he's on the pitch who he's just turned his back to, but he just looks like he's clapping himself, and you can't. It's like laughing at your own jokes. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
me and you do regularly, but you can't clap yourself.
He's only had the opportunity to do it once in the last 4 games.
You know when someone gets introduced on a quiz or something, or a game show or something like that, and here's Serge from London, and he claps himself. That really fucking annoys me. Don't why are you clapping yourself? Don't do that. Little things really piss me off. Yeah, fist bumps for managers and then cuddles. Weird. We should start doing that in bars. All right, love. Fist bump.
I do like the old elbow touch as well. I'm like, you can't transmit corona from an elbow or something.
That was
weird.
Even more orcs. Yeah.
We're talking about Arteta and the Arsenal manager. Virendra asked the question, why are Arsenal so unpredictable, top class last week, shambolic tonight? And they have this weird thing now, and we know, I'm going to embellish the question a little bit, that Arsenal Fan TV has always been a bit of ridicule. But in a strange way, I thought they were going to shake the notion of being a bit of a banter club that you can have a laugh at, because they're just so odd and bizarre sometimes. But I saw ex-West Ham employee tweet a little clip of the AFTV guys on Sunday as well, and just the way that they go to extremes. And then you've got Tierney tripping over his own lace, doing the weirdest thing.
That was incredible, Kieran Tierney.
Weird. And you just think, but I thought they were making progress, and then they just seem to take steps backward into this weird world of Arsenal.
Popcorn sales, pizza sales all went through the roof on Sunday night, I should imagine, because no one had been tuning in recently. It's quite boring, this, isn't it? They're all right.
Yeah.
It felt like the result came from nowhere, because I think, interestingly, obviously, after Manchester United, listen, you win at Old Trafford, it's a big deal, whatever state they're in, for Palace, Tottenham, Arsenal, whomever, right? It's a big deal. So for them to, and it got the monkey off the back of, I don't know what this was, 29 away games. They haven't won away to a so-called Big Six team or something going back to 2014 or 15 or something, like a bloody long time. Do you feel like they've got the monkey off the back, basically, and then this happens, and it just, I think the reaction from Arsenal fans got heightened so much because of A, they probably lulled themselves into the thought last week of, oh, we're back. And then B, they didn't just get beat, did they? I mean, 3-0 did not flatter Villa. Villa could have won by more.
Of course, yeah.
So then you start asking questions, well, why is this happening? And I think, quite honestly, it falls a little bit to what I mentioned yesterday about partnerships for Parsi in midfield. It's worth saying he went off obviously injured at half-time as well. So that was a significant blow that we didn't mention yesterday. And creativity. You would look at Villa with Barkley and Grealish versus Arsenal at the moment. And I mean versus Arsenal's creativity. What would you rather have? You'd rather have Barkley and Grealish, wouldn't you?
Massively,
Ross Barkley would do a great job for Arsenal at the moment, playing in a 10 position, basically.
Yep. And you feel like McGinn has more energy than maybe a Partey or whoever else partners him in midfield. Like, he bombs forwards, but still manages to cover the ground. Yeah, no doubt about that at all. Andre L, thoughts on replacements for Saiss and Mopé for the next 4 to 6 game weeks? I already have Watkins. So Saiss...
Well, that's one answer gone.
You could easily move to Kilman, surely, as a good sideways move. I think that would free you up a little bit of money as well that you could plug into your midfield.
Straightforward, though. Let me give you a list of teams, right? Southampton, Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, Chelsea, Tottenham, Man United, Everton. How many of them teams do you think won't finish top half this season?
None. They all will.
Right. Well, the only other fixture Wolves have got between now and January the 2nd is Burnley away.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Tottenham's run. I mean, Wolves' run is really difficult. And because of the way they defend, they'll still get some returns in these games. There'll still be some clean sheets, I'm sure. I think you're right. Saiss to Kilman's quite straightforward. You're probably not going to play him too much, though. Shout out for my boy, Nico Williams.
3.9.
He's in the squad. I've bought him.
Before you answer the Mopé question, we had a question from FPL_failure as well, which probably we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If you were choosing one 6 million-ish striker, who would you go for? Watkins, Adams, Bamford, Antonio if fit.
It doesn't solve the problem because I'd say Watkins, but the other fella's already got
so
him.
let's rank them. So Watkins is top, followed by?
Who am I choosing from? Watkins, Bamford,
Anyone
Adams?
6 million-ish. So, and Antonio as well, because he's 6.2 now. He's got to be thrown into the mix.
Antonio second, if he's fit. Yep. Above the other 2, in my opinion.
Bamford, and then Adams.
Timing for Bamford with Arsenal, Everton, Chelsea next 3 doesn't feel...
Yeah, so then Adams maybe
great,
and then Bamford.
But then Adams has got Wolves and Man United. And that's why I think right now, if you're buying one, it is Watkins.
I think I'd go with Adams over Bamford. Watkins, Antonio, Adams, Bamford. Adams, I mean, Southampton just looked good, didn't they? So,
well, they're both getting chances, aren't they? This is why people are talking about a blanket of, say, a roundabouts between 5.9 and 6.5 as free forwards, because you've got those players to choose from, right? There are so many good options down there, and that allows you quite comfortably to have a Son, Fernandes, De Bruyne, whatever you want, Salah midfield, and get there. Is particularly if you've got obviously a very cheap back line as well. So that's why people are looking at these players. I think, yes, Watkins. I have to say, although I'd say Antonio Chua, I don't think I would buy him this week, even if he's definitely fit. But then I would go to Watkins first. It's easier for me to say that. I would probably go Adams over Bamford.
Yeah.
But not a lot in it. Just because I think Southampton, well, to be honest, I think they'll score more goals than Leeds, generally speaking.
Let's talk about your favourite team, James, Spurs, because we have a number of questions about Spurs assets, starting with Andre. Let's split it out into 2. So let's talk defensively first, because FPL Rabbi says Reguilon, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing Reguilon as an FPL asset. Reguilon. I've had him for 3 weeks, missed the Burnley match, but then returned in both, entering a difficult run, showing a lot of character, and Jose will probably tighten things up at the back even more. What are your thoughts, James? I think if you own him, I don't know if it's worth moving him on necessarily. But
well, all the players at Tottenham call him Reggie, so perhaps we'll just go with that.
Reggie.
You can hear Hugo Lloris in some games at the moment barking Reggie. I would sell him. Him, Chilwell, Reece James, Robertson, all these guys, great potential for attacking returns. Tottenham's games coming up for me are too difficult, in my opinion. I don't see many, if any, clean sheets coming in the next 6 or 7 or so. So you are therefore relying on those attacking returns. So not for me. It would be no consideration for me. If you've got, it's not the worst thing to hold. Generally speaking, my advice would be to sell.
And then moving forward, so I'm going to rattle through a few questions here, James, and we can wrap them up in one. Is it time to consider moving Son out for a few weeks? That's from Andre. Mikey, I'm deciding between keeping Kane until game week 16 or getting Vardy for their favourable stretch. And I am including Liverpool in that. I'm looking, this is Terran Culture. I'm looking to downgrade Jimenez for some extra funds elsewhere. Who should I bring in? He's already got Watkins and Kane. Could downgrade Kane. So Kane and Son come up in a number of conversations. Even Tom, a Spurs upcoming game is actually better for FPL. Teams who will come out and play with a higher line seem to favour Spurs potentially. A lot of kind of Spurs talk here.
We already recorded our Tottenham podcast for patrons earlier, and we normally split it 15 minutes each, Tottenham, West Ham each. And Suj interrupted me 25 minutes in and said, can I speak about my team now? And I didn't have a script of what I was going to say. I was just going on to a lot of tactical stuff about Spurs. And yes, it depends where you sit on the theory in terms of can Kane and Son be more effective against better teams because there's likely to be a bit more space on the counter-attack? Or do you take the view and just go, well, they're bloody harder fixtures. They'll probably score less goals, for example. It just depends entirely where you sit. I wouldn't have the thinking of with Son, for example. If you're thinking at the moment is, well, I'll sell for the next 3 and I'll buy back in game week 12, and the same applies to Kane, I wouldn't bother. You still got Liverpool, Leicester, Wolves after that. So I think if you're coming off, you're probably staying off for a little while. You need to be conscious of that because the value you've built up, etc. I think it's, if no fires move on, but absolutely okay to hold them. Kane's consistency will be brilliant. Son quite often only needs the one return to be hitting double point hauls. And he is streaky. So quite often he will get double returns in a game anyway. So they're both okay options. It really depends what you feel on the tactical issues. And it depends on what team Guardiola picks, is what one of the things I spoke about earlier was, like, they can get done behind the line City if you break through it properly. But then with the way they set up, will they allow it? I don't have the answers because none of us know from week to week what Guardiola's going to do anyway, right? So I think it's a good time to jump off if it's okay, but I wouldn't force it as such, I don't think.
No. We have a question from Atul Balaji. How are you, Atul? Thoughts on Cancelo versus Chilwell? We'll just get both and take Robbo out. The latter breaks my heart, but my FPL score breaks my heart even more.
Be good when they both get rested together, wouldn't it?
Mm.
Which I don't think that's not going to happen very often to Ben Chilwell. And the fixtures coming up for Chelsea don't suggest that there will be a lot of rotation in that area because, the fixtures are getting more difficult. Some of the fixtures they've got coming up are definitely not Marcus Alonso games, by the way.
No.
So Chilwell should be pretty safe. Cancelo is the same risk as it is for De Bruyne, Sterling, Mahrez, Foden, Jesus.
Cancelo's been playing well,
everyone
though.
But Edison. He has been playing well.
I'd rather Cancelo if Cancelo played than Mendy.
Mendy's been past fit this morning. So what does it mean?
Nothing. I think Cancelo's the better player than Mendy, but that doesn't mean that he won't get rotated.
He probably is, yeah.
Yeah.
And if Cancelo's the better player, guess what? He's probably going to play the harder fixtures.
Yeah. I misread this, James. With it's spelt the way he's typed it is just wrong. But I'm not going to read it the way I read it. You can figure that one out. Is there an outside chance that Jesus or anyone else takes pens, or will it be KDB? Because KDB without pens is not worth the 11.5. I think. I don't know if you got the joke there.
No, I didn't. Can you repeat the joke?
KDB without pens is not worth the 11.5, I think.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Really?
Need to put spaces in the right places.
We're meant to be stand-up guys, pillars of the FPL community and that, and you're making willy jokes.
my Patricio Fuchs Vardy tweet
that was really good.
Quite a lot of jokes, to be honest with you. It's always the ones that come off just like that work quite well. But there we go. KDB without pens, or will he lose pens? I don't think he'll lose them. Will he? Off
no,
one miss.
But what price was KDB last season? I can't remember now. Was he 10.5 maybe?
Yeah.
But he was getting up to like 11.5, wasn't he?
Mm.
So was he not worth it before he was on pens in the winter period as well?
He's worth it for me, KDB at 11.5. And I also don't think he'll lose pens just off that one miss. That was a real bad scuff.
The listeners will know, and I think I said this yesterday, that I think the world of KDB as a player and as an FPL asset. But this short-term period, it might be that Sterling's my priority, genuinely speaking. I think in terms of value, I still oddly enough probably prefer De Bruyne's value to Sterling's value, if I'm honest. It's just knowing that Sterling explosion potentially in some of those home fixtures, and De Bruyne might end up playing a deeper role. We've seen that before when they played so-called weaker opposition. So Kevin De Bruyne's never far from my thoughts. I wouldn't be surprised if I start game week 9 and he's in. I've gone Trent to Nico Williams. I've now got the money to go to Bruno, Sterling, KDB. Anyway, I need to have a little. I can't get to Salah actually. Okay. I need to have a little think about it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's KDB.
FPL Bobo, a Brighton the equivalent of good guys that finish last. We all love them, but they all and they are stand-up guys. Well, I don't know about Mope. But we know they're just not getting lucky. I don't know if it's luck. You've got to be clinical. And this is a tough league. If you don't take your chances and you leak sloppy goals, and we talked about the goals conceded versus their XG. I mean, every time someone has a chance against them, they're 75% chance of scoring at the moment.
Yeah. Would have helped Burnley if they've had some few shots on goal last Friday, possibly. I think Neil Maupay knows he's an arsehole, by the way. Not the good guys who come last, because they won't come last. They're not Norwich. Most of us enjoyed watching Norwich last year, right? So that's the that's what that means. I still think they'll stay up. They'll be all right. FPL for me now, forget that shit. If you got Lamptey, it's fine. Otherwise, forget that shit. It's not a great run of fixtures for them either till the end of the year now. You got Fulham, Sheffield United, West Ham, a nice 3 fixtures, 13 to 15. Other than that, it begins to look quite difficult. Games like Villa, Southampton, Leicester all look harder than they did in game week 1. It was another reason why I kind of come to the conclusion that even if Matt Ryan did play, which obviously he did, I wasn't going to regret the move as such in terms of moving to Martinez, because coming back to what we've spoken about a number of times yesterday, that Villa run is unbelievable.
George_FPL, for anyone still with the wildcard, are there any standout benefits of pulling the trigger during this international break? I'm 50-50 on whether to do it now or game week 15.
The standout, I think, would be to fix your team to target game week 12. Sorry, Suj, I can't remember if this is on the podcast or the one you forgot to record that I already spoke about this.
No, this you answered yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
On the Patreon pod. So you gave a really good summary yesterday on what the advantages, disadvantages were of.
Oh, yeah.
16, 17, 18, 19.
I did do a 6-minute briefing yesterday on the Patreon pod of keeping the wild card while I am, basically. But no, I was thinking more about short term. If I was wildcarding now, I would be targeting whatever I wanted from City, Liverpool, and I would get it now. I wouldn't be thinking, I'm going to do this now. I'm then going to get Sterling and De Bruyne the week after. I would go and get the team I wanted, because a lot of people are obviously really focused on City's run at the moment, and so you should, with Burnley, Fulham at home consecutively, West Brom at home 2 weeks after that, and Newcastle at home 2 weeks after that, and Brighton at home 2 weeks after that. It's amazing home fixtures coming up for City in the short and medium term. But don't forget, Liverpool, game week 12, Fulham away, and there isn't another good captaincy alternative that week, other than arguably maybe Tottenham away to Palace. But you ain't going to captain Kane or Son away to Palace over Salah away to Fulham. I just don't see that. And after that Fulham game, Liverpool's run up until 2021 is Tottenham, Crystal Palace, West Brom, Newcastle, and Burnley. So don't overlook the fact that this is one of the reasons I really wanted to keep hold of Trent. Because even I look at the difficult games coming up, like Leicester Wolves at home, they feel like they can be clean sheets to me. So I think what I would advise for people on Wildcard now is to have a think about which team do you want between game weeks 10 and 12 and just get it now. Just if you want Salah for game week 12, get him in now. If obviously you don't already own, for example. The advantages of doing it now, you never get the price rises that you expect during the international break. It's a bit of a myth.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can get all the information and react to any injury issues, etc. You have is another great advantage. And yes, you can stack up to Liverpool, City, Villa, whatever you want. The Villa value allows you to City, Liverpool, whatever you want, basically. So you can go down that route. I think you'll find if you're wildcarding now, you'll be trying to fit in 9 players from Liverpool, City and Villa. That's what I'd be trying to do, basically.
FPL Set and Forget does talk about the game week 15-16 wildcard. Are you still confident we'll get the fixtures in time for game week 18-19? And I'm not sure. It says also not sure how the pay-per-view decision will impact that.
So pay-per-view decision this morning, for those who missed it, is no more pay-per-view games. Rejoice. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things we might see is an end, and this is more of a Sky point, but I think we might see the end of the 5:30 Friday and Monday games. Because I think that the TV companies would probably rather show 2 games at 12 o'clock and have people pick which one they want if they're all going to be free, for example. What's the question?
Are we confident we're going to get the fixtures before game week 18?
Yes, sorry. The point I was going to make is it probably went past people quite a lot last week, but we got the dates and the times announced for the Carabao Cup quarterfinals.
Right, okay.
Which is really interesting because they're like only 2 or 3 days before Christmas. So why have they come out and announced the kickoff times and dates for those now when we don't even know after games for game week 9 yet in the Premier League? Now, it could be that the EFL in this case and Carabao and Sky obviously have the exclusive coverage for it, have just gone, okay, well, we know what we want to do with that. We're happy to announce it in advance. But I think it does give an indication that there's a little bit more long-term thinking at play today. Richard Masters spoke this morning in his briefing about obviously moving on from pay-per-view, and he said he wasn't going to reveal what it was yet, but are thinking towards what they were going to do in terms of television coverage from now and into January, which obviously suggests, I think we could probably all guess at the moment, that no fans in stadiums till at least February is probably how we're looking, unless it's an extremely limited number. So I think they now know that it's obviously all been short-term thinking with the idea of if we can get fans back into grounds, then this will change from a television perspective. But I think they know now 2-3 months they ain't getting fans in the ground. Might as well do some long-term thinking now. And I think that's probably where we're heading. I would be surprised if we didn't get to know what 18 and 19 will be looking like before game week 15. If we don't know by the time game week 15 starts, we're all fucked.
Who've held our wild cards.
It's as simple as that. I think we probably will know. I think it makes sense because of extra things like weather, organising travel, etc., just to have a little bit more planning in mind for January. But yes, it is reasonable that it could be that game week 18 and 19 is announced in like game week 17. But I think also the other reason I think we probably will know is for a lot of teams, it is going to be like they're only free midweek for quite a while. So I think probably the big 6 will be demanding to know what week they're not playing. In most of these cases, they can say, okay, we need to know that we need to give our players 3 days off here, for example, or whatever.
3 days off. They'll be jetting off to Dubai or Spain training camps or whatever else, mate.
They won't be, mate. They won't be. The reason this split is happening is to compensate particularly Sky for the fact that the product they paid for was a little bit different at the end of the season. That's why this split's happening. There's a lot of people who think it's winter break related. It's not. It's so that they can split a full calendar of midweek fixtures over 2 midweeks. So there's maximum exposure for them to show as many games and have as many different viewers as possible. That's why it's happening.
Duncan Rob Jones should have played my bench boost ? Button 0, Watkins 10, Walker Peters 9, Lemina 0. So it's a net total of 19 points. If you play your wild card a week before a bench boost and you get 4 playing players on your bench who have 2 fixtures each, you could end up with 16 just on appearance points. So 19 off a bench boost, is it really?
19 off a bench boost, genuinely, is quite successful. I always measure it as, for me, you've got 4 shit players on the bench. They've got a double game week. If I got the minimum of 2 points for all of them, that's 16 points.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's the game that I would. That's the game that I generally look for. You should never, ever play a bench boost unless you've got a playing goalkeeper. I don't care. So the answer is no.
The Blue City, Southampton midfielders look interesting. Who would be your preference? I'd go back to the one that I had at the start of the season had he not got injured, in Stuart Armstrong for me. Probably because I just like his price and I just like him. Walcott,
he was really good Friday night.
In and out of the team. You're not going to the likes of Romeu, Redmond in and out of the team. I just think Armstrong is going to be the one.
To be honest, it would have to be because we don't know Ward-Prowse's injury status and it's suspected hamstring as well. So that always makes you nervous that it could be bad. So it would have to be Armstrong, but I would go to Adams, by the way. I would just different route if I wanted Southampton coverage.
Mike Lesage says, who is your favourite player on your least favourite team? And doesn't have to be FPL related. I don't know. I struggle with my least favourite team here. I'm not a hater, so I don't really have a team that is my least favourite.
All right, I'm going to say something that's really going to upset Arsenal fans now. So Ian Wright was a wonderful player. Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp. I hated these guys, obviously, but I could say they were great players. They used to scare me. I used to respect them, right? We used to have brilliant banter with Ian Wright. You knew in any time we played them, we could either get sent off for doing something stupid or he'd scored a winner against us. And it was like that. We hated him, but we loved him for the fact he gave it back as well. Proper rivalries. Now, if I looked at them and went, if I was to take one of their players for Tottenham, who would I want? I spoke last week about Partey, and that would, to be honest, Thomas Partey would probably be my answer. But if I looked at their players and went, who do I actually like in that team? I thought about this question. I don't know what the answer is to say, oh, I like him. They've had players who you could go, I really like him. He's a great player. He's really good or whatever. Even if you hate him. I look at them at the moment. I mean, would you take Aubameyang over Son? Just generally for life?
No.
You wouldn't, in my opinion. I mean, you might think differently if it played through the middle, but then would you take Aubameyang over Kane?
No. If I had to pick a Spurs player now, I mean, obviously there's tons there. I think Harry Kane would be the one that is a standout because I respect the way he's been able to adapt his game, and he's really developed other facets to it. He's not just a straight and out number 9, kind of brings other players in. His passing, his tracking back, his tackling, his work rate. I think Harry Kane for me is the one I'd have to go to.
To give you an answer, I will say Kieran Tierney.
Okay.
When he's not doing dumb things like falling over his own feet.
Yeah. We've got a question in from FCL Pools, and I'm going to read this properly this time, James. Who do you think was more likely to score in game week 8? Jimenez, Serge, James, or Manchild? Was it a case that Jimenez just didn't have any service?
Oh, it feels like he doesn't touch the ball, and actually he did have quite a few touches. I feel like he's dropping too deep at the moment. I meant to discuss this yesterday. He's dropping too deep. I just want him to stay in the box, basically. Well, I didn't score at the weekend. How was your luck?
Nah. Stuck indoors, mate.
Manchild
is the one. Manchild is the one. He was probably the one that found an underground club that's open in lockdown. Excuse me. And
DJ, was he?
A speakeasy or something like that where you could just get in and have a drink and score with the ladies. We'll ask Manchild. You can find him on Twitter, so just tag him in. Timo on the drugs. Have your predictions about the top 4 changed?
Yes, because I would have said Manchester United pre-season, and now I'll probably edge towards Tottenham. But obviously, the fixture list is turning for Tottenham, and United can very quickly make up that difference. I feel less confident that Arsenal can challenge for top four than I did pre-season. But then you've now got Leicester into the mix, potentially Wolves, potentially Everton. If you ask me now, I would say yes, I think Tottenham can finish fourth.
I mean,
ahead of United. I think that's what most people would, that's what the bookies would tell you at the moment. It's what most people would agree with at the moment.
I mean, Liverpool, Chelsea, City are a lock for me, then probably Tottenham and then United.
The irony that prior to last season, after the Champions League final, everybody we knew would have said Tottenham top four.
Yep.
Nowhere near it. This year, nobody's saying it. And this year might be again. Just shows, doesn't it?
Slim Shady, Jesus or Werner in for Kane? I mean, Jesus is now priced at 9.3 million. Werner's at 9.4. Thoughts?
I think Werner will go back through the middle. I think he needs to for him, for Chelsea to fit in the other players when Pulisic and Havertz return, etc. Mason Mount's played really well last couple of games, by the way. But I think Jesus. I think you just gamble with it with the fixtures they've got coming up, I think. So it would be Jesus.
Yeah, I'd go Jesus as well. There's just the likelihood that with City that at some point we all think they're going to just go mental and rack up 4 or 5.
I don't think, though, he's the player that I would ever want to put the armband on. Not that you have to, it is value. It's just a conscious thing that I might have learned during restart. Don't do that, maybe.
FPL Shrink. How much more is a player on pens worth? And I'm going to tie this into another question, James. Salah versus Mane. Because Salah now, when I'm looking at a lot of conversations about Liverpool's run, they've got some very good home fixtures where the armband on Salah is basically almost a no-brainer. I wouldn't hesitate to pay the extra 0.4 for Salah over Mane right now. There were times last season where they're both priced the same, and there was as much clamouring for Mane over Salah. I think people have now agreed that Salah is the better pick. Having said that, if KDB loses pens, and we talked about it, I couldn't care less. I'm still going to keep him. His price is his price. Are you factoring in pens anymore?
I'd probably more factor in at the moment. Most of the listeners will know I don't enjoy owning Mohamed Salah. He frustrates the life out of me, but he's a priority get for me at some point in the next couple of weeks ahead of that run that starts in game week 12. I may well get him in for game week 10. I can't get him in game week 9 unless I take a -8. So I'll probably -4 to get him in game week 10 is my current thinking at the moment. Definitely him over Mane. Yes, the penalties does play a little bit of a factor in that. The system probably plays on my mind a little bit more. I think they'll go back to 4-3-3, but if they stay with the 4-2-3-1, you're looking at potentially Salah through the middle and Mane playing as a more conventional wide midfielder possibly, and that would make him a no-go zone for me. So it's the prospect of that would definitely make me lean into Salah more as well. KDB is still good value, man.
Oh yeah, always.
KDB was good value at just under 11.5 million last season before he was on penalties, right? So we suddenly feel different because he might be off penalties. I imagine he would stay on them anyway. The rest of them are shit at taking them as well anyway, so what does it matter? I couldn't believe that he put it wide. That was...
But, he really scuffed it, didn't he? It was just not a clean hit.
He pulled it. He did what he wanted to do with it, but he pulled it too much. It was shocking. Right. It wasn't even particularly close.
No. And the last question of the Q&A pod, James, goes to Post to Points, who have a cockerel on their logo. So probably one of the Spurs lot.
Love it.
Bruno or Rashford for the next 6 games?
Bruno. That's quite a comfortable one for me. There's again, this is how you manipulate stats and you do what you want with it. So there's this stat I mentioned yesterday, which I saw Adam Hopcroft had highlighted, that Bruno Fernandes has not scored a goal at Old Trafford from open play. His only goals have been penalties or one free kick, I believe, against Bournemouth during the restart. That's it. His returns at home are still not bad, right? Because a penalty and an assist is still a great return in a football match, right? From an FPL perspective. The flip is he is the only player currently, as FPL Canal, our stat highlighted on Twitter this morning, is the only player in FPL currently who's got more than 20% of his club's entire points.
Wow. Talisman or what?
Exactly, right? But it doesn't feel like that at the moment. But that's the way it's beginning to head. His performance at Everton is what would maybe make me change my mind to go, he looks like he's up for it now. It didn't work for me when I went Fernandes and Martial, obviously, in game week 3. I would go Fernandes. Rashford's pulled out the England squad as well. He's my cap player, spoken regularly about he needs a run of games to get up to what he wants to be. We don't know if that's just he needs a break injury or if he is actually injured. We probably will never know if he is available for that West Brom game. But yeah, Fernandes for me.
There we go. We've rattled through all of the questions for all of you listeners. Thank you for sending them in. We really do appreciate it, giving you some food for thought for this international break. We're going to get into a really good stretch from game weeks 9 to game weeks 12. A lot of teams with good fixtures that might be able to fill your boots with points. So looking forward to seeing how everybody gets on with that. If you need more content, then do head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. We're releasing an additional podcast every day for our patrons, as well as some prize mini league, Slack channel, so on and so on and so on. But there we go. We'll be back at you tomorrow with Fantasy Sky. James, decent week for you, decent week for me.
Good score, but not a great week. Had a small red arrow.
Okay, I had a small green arrow. I'm up to 10,000
There were plenty
now.
knocking about in the hundreds. I got at 90 points, I think, but about 75 of them from 3 players because I hit the captaincies. So, yeah, my other players did next to nothing for me, basically.
So tune in for a little bit more detail on that. Wherever you are, stay safe, though, is the most important thing in the current climate. Ciao for now.
Be nice to each other, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.